welcome back to another episode of Reinventing Finance. As usual, I'm not all by myself. I have the great pleasure of having Eliron with me today. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I am excited to speak about, what are we going to speak about? About your company, about motor insurance, about how to make it a little bit better. Um, And maybe a good place to start would be, why don't you briefly introduce yourself and your company, and then I think we can take it from there.
So Raven uses technology to remotely assess physical condition of vehicles. We use mainly computer vision and deep learning algorithms to determine damages and actually calculate repair costs for both fleet companies, car dealers, and insurance companies.
And what would be the macro problem that you're solving with this?
Look, I think there is a problem of transparency around motor costs and repairs around the world, particularly what we've seen in the insurance industry in recent years is a dramatic inflation of repair costs, which push the motor line for those insurance companies, which has already been challenging, to an even tougher environment. We see price increases. We see, Germany motor insurance CPI. I was just reading a report by Swiss Re saying it was up 23.4% year on year in March 24. And I think a lot of that is driven by the repair costs and actually less transparency around how do you repair a vehicle, what kind of processes do you take place in the background, which we can help pretty significantly.
So what does drive, out of curiosity, what does drive repair costs? And just kind of, maybe is there some learning for me as a consumer, maybe, whether I am insured or not insured? It's because it's true. It's like a black box. I mean, I have a guy who I go to, and I trust that guy. But I have no idea, and the only reason why I trust that guy, there is actually some family relations. But I did go to, I have a really old BMW, really old. Could be a classic car if I treated it well, but which I didn't. And I had some, I don't know, some damage to it. I went to BMW, and they just said like 4,000 euros or something. I then went to this guy, and he said, listen, you don't need to replace the whole thing. We can kind of repair it. And it was 400 euros or something. Ever since, he's my guy.
You are pinpointing exactly the right matter. And what you've described now, the difference between what this guy quoted to you, which was probably in the hundreds of euros, versus what BMW quoted, which was in the thousands of euros, is essentially what we see on the balance sheets of insurance companies today, in the billions and trillions of dollars, actually. So you've asked what drives the dramatic cost increases. Obviously, macroeconomic problems like shortage in parts and labor, the crisis in Ukraine, the crisis in the Middle East, disruptions to supply chain. That all has a burden on supply of materials and parts for vehicles. There is also shortage of technical labor in body shops and in insurance companies. So there is less people to do the work, and that puts a lot of pressure. And then in the post-COVID era, there is also actually a lot more accidents happening. Surprisingly, you wouldn't expect it.
Really?
But yeah, I did read a report, I think it was CNBC, that showed an increase in collisions. And because the cars are more expensive, and every collision is also more expensive to repair. There are a lot more components that get hit. Now, once you look at the problem, if you look at the average repair cost, and you put next to it the logistical cost. The logistical cost starts when you have an insurance claim and you just drop your car off at a body shop. Once you do that, only then the insurance company gets involved. It may receive some images and reports from the body shop, but then the ability for insurance companies to actually control the process is very limited. And the expenses start rising from that point because many of them give you a courtesy car for replacement. There is already a tow truck that needs to be paid. There is already somebody at the desk of the insurance company that needs to now process the case. And so the admin costs also start rising. And the question you ask yourself, does it have to be like that? Is there a way, because these claims are more frequent and repetitive, to automate those claims and approve repairs more quickly? And on the way, also control the costs of repair more effectively.
So we've had, and this is kind of German figures. If I have a bit of a closer, or German use cases, and I hope I don't butcher them, but I've heard that so one of the leading car insurer, they actually they've set up their own proprietary network of garages, which they own, thus they drive costs, and they actually providing that as a service to their competitors, so they can get ever better margins. But ultimately, it's to decide where you go to make your repairs, right? Is one, and that is actually. I don't know whether that is the same in each country, but there's actually you need to decide whether you have kind of free choice or not, and if you have free choice, then it is a higher premium. The other thing that I thought was quite interesting, and what you've mentioned, is that they do actually want to get hold of the process really early on, because it minimizes cost, because they can minimize the cost of the courtesy car, they can minimize, they get it to the right repair shop, they get it potentially to the repair shop who potentially has the right materials, etc., because the costs start ticking. For the insurance company. So there seems to be a strong kind of, owning that supply chain, rather than everyone who has a car accident, hopefully, never, but the next best choice, maybe once or twice in their year, kind of go all, okay, how do I now solve this process? Where do you guys come in? What's your what's your take on the problem chain?
So I'll give you an example from one of our projects. We actually work with the largest insurance company in Australia called IAG. And when we looked at the breakdown of their claims, we identified that about 10 to 15% are total loss vehicles. So they will never actually get repaired.
Mm-hmm.
And then another 10 to 15% are just too small. That's on the other side. Too small to be repaired. And if you manage to grab that information at the point of the first notification of loss from the customer or from a tow truck driver that comes to the scene, just determining that decision and avoiding the car getting to the body shop is a major saving. You are talking about anything from hundreds to thousands of dollars per case.
Okay, because okay, interesting. Yeah, it's starting it right at the beginning, right? It's okay. Yep.
Now, once you get those images and you can make the decision, so you fast track those two cases on the other side, either a total loss or too small to claim, if you like, or some sort of cash settlement. So you go to your guy instead of going to BMW.
Mm-hmm.
Just that saving is massive. And then if the car does end up in the body shop, at least they have
What does
our
massive mean? Do you have a kind of
30% lower. So if you paid, we have cases where the insurance company would have paid, 1,000 euros, and they will now only have to pay 700 euros because they've settled it immediately and they don't have all the overhead around it.
Okay.
So and these numbers add up. Now, some cases will end up at the body shop. You will say, look, according to Raven's repair estimate, we think this car does need to get repaired, send it to the body shop. Even then, we create a benchmark for them to approve the body shop quote more quickly. So the body shop doesn't need to wait for approval. You don't need to wait for your car. It all becomes much more effective. The car gets to the body shop already with a Raven supported approval of the repair, and the body shop can just carry on with the repair. So on one hand, it's efficiency. On the other hand, it's transparency.
So I think, and on those ones, how easy is it for you to localize, or do you need to localize? So I would say, great, this works in Australia. Does this also work in Germany or
Yes,
Switzerland? Or?
actually, it's a great question. We've started working with insurance companies in Germany, and what we realized is that about 80% of the parts and the materials are actually quite similar to what you see in other countries like the US and Australia where we operate, because there is a global supply chain. There are some unique models of vehicles that may only exist in Germany or the
Sure.
EU. And then you need to adopt the local operations, and we have the right partnerships in every market to do that kind of last mile adaptation.
And how do you, so if you kind of take a step, so you kind of triaging right in the beginning, how does, how accurate are you on estimating certain claims, and you know, what's required? So I mean, it might very well be that an insurance company is willing to share data with you, if that saves it, but just kind of how would that process, and maybe let's take that process to say, okay, we want to enter Germany or Switzerland, whatever. What would that process be like? When could we get started on, as you said, 80% straight away? How much lead time would you have? What would be an ideal process looking like if you wanted to, let's just start onboard an insurance company?
Yeah, there is a little bit of an adaptation period, which we have already started doing for Germany, for example. So any insurance company in Germany, if you talk to me in a couple of weeks, they will be better placed to actually start benefiting from the solution today. And that means that our accuracy is above the 80% mark. It means it's just good enough for those clear cases, and then it gets better and better every week that we work together. In order to adapt the model, we've seen it's kind of in the hundreds of cases, not thousands of cases.
And at which point does it make sense? What's the kind of normal engagement? At which point does it make sense for you to have a chat with an insurance company? How do you go? Is there like a pilot? Is there minimum engagement? You know, what would that look like? How do you crack the nut?
Yeah, there is indeed a pilot period where they just try out the solution. The solution doesn't need much integration. It can work pretty much out of the box. So you are talking about a web application that you can send a link to a customer that reports an incident, or a tied agent. Many insurance companies in Germany have agents that work with them. So one of them, either customer or the agent, they will get the link to the web application. They will do the scan. We will deliver the estimate to the insurance company, and there is a motor assessment team within the insurance company that can look at our estimate and verify that it's fit for purpose.
Okay. So if we, do you have, you've said, are there any other EU or European countries that you're currently looking at for anyone listening? Or would you say, you know, Germans, call me up in a few weeks, French, you know, maybe give me a few months?
No, we are open to most countries. As we've seen, the adaptation between countries is not as big a challenge as people think. So definitely open to any country. I think we are definitely stronger in what you call the OECD countries, or the developed economies. They are the ones that are experiencing a lot of the challenge. That's where we focus.
Okay. So we've talked kind of in terms of use cases, insurance claims. We have the triage. We can, so, but it's effectively, it is about It's reducing the admin. Is that the key to it? It's really reducing the admin part of the insurance claim, because you cannot fix labor shortage, you cannot fix disrupted supply chains. Is that the lever that you take, or is there something else where you have claims accuracy? What else is there on the insurance use case?
So I would split the benefits to logistics and then to the repair itself.
Okay.
Logistics is about avoidance of, let's say, towing the car and then discovering that it's total loss and you need to tow it again to the salvage, or the opportunity to settle a claim with cash to a customer. That's the logistics part and just automating processes. But there is a big chunk of benefits in simply choosing the right repair method. So I've just seen an example the other day of a truck that had a few scratches on the door, and then the body shop said, I need to replace both the door and the surrounding panels because this is what I feel is right, and it was approved for repair. Now, another professional, let's just take your guy because we started with it. Your guy will be fair and say, look, I can just paint it. And by the way, I have exactly the right paint. I don't need to order something else. It's approved by the OEM. So it still meets the regulation in Germany. It just happens to be 50% lower repair cost. So it's not just a logistical benefit. It's ultimately choosing the most cost-effective repair method that is compliant with the law.
Okay. If you are, because you've also mentioned fleet management, and I believe on your website, you mentioned sale of used cars. Can you kind of walk us through those use cases, how they compare and contrast?
Absolutely. So fleets and rental cars, our main use case there is that we can detect damages happening before and after the rental. So we give the customers a transparent view, but also the car rental company can detect if there is incremental damage to the vehicle, and they can charge their customer. Also there, it's very important because these are a lot of transactions happening. It's important to be efficient and automated. So focusing only on the incremental damage, analyzing it, estimating the cost of repair, and then asking the customer to participate in the cost, not just randomly telling them, hey, you damaged the car, as sometimes happens. And then you get this letter and you start arguing with them, which is also not pleasant for anybody. So we are actually doing this today, especially in the United States with the major car rental brands. And we are talking about volumes of hundreds of thousands of cases per month. And then if I go to the used car space, eventually a lot of fleets and dealers looking to value a used car. And part of the valuation is adapting damages on the car to the value. So let's say you are going one day to sell your BMW, maybe, and then you will go to a dealer and they'll tell you, oh, look, it's a great car, but hey, mechanically it's fine, but of course I need to deduct 500 euros because of this scratch and 300 euros because of that scratch. And gradually they will peel off money from their offer, right? So here as well, we are providing the industry, car sellers and car buyers, more transparency, giving them the opportunity to scan the car, analyze the damages, and really giving them a monetary value.
And would the same, I don't know whether the frequency, like car leasing companies, when you kind of give your car back, because I remember I've only had one car so far, which I've bought at the time. So I don't know the process, but a friend of mine, she had a bit of a bad awakening when she handed it back to the car leaser, because they deducted a lot of things, and then she had to pay, I think, like $5,000 or something afterwards for various reasons, some internal, some external. And if I'm okay, but you're nodding for anyone listening that something similar could.
Absolutely. Look, the process is broken. Let's just put it out there. Leasing companies use third-party inspection
Yes.
services, people whose job is to find as much damage on the car as possible. That's what they're hired to do. If they don't find it, then they don't get paid. And so that doesn't always result in the best customer experience, let's say. And it's not always in the interest of the leasing company either, because eventually, if the damage is there, they need to repair it, they need to report it before they actually sell this car onwards. So once again, if you have a tool that is able to capture a condition of a car, maybe before it gets returned, then you as a customer have the opportunity to push back and say, look, this is damage. I'm going to repair. Don't worry about it. And this one, this one is not really damaged. This is actually just dirt or something. And then you have the opportunity to take care of the car before you get charged.
But you don't have a business to consumer application, right? You're pure B2B. And so the leasing company might have an interest, if they're looking at it transactionally, to have a really large after kind of return invoice.
The leasing company will ask us to send a link to a customer, just like an insurance company asks us to send a link to a customer. It works pretty much the same.
Okay, because the leasing company then has the body shop who will then inflate. Okay, understood. Yeah. Okay.
And they have customers bringing the car back. So our solution helps them to see the car from the customer and then tell the customer, look, you are on the hook for $5,000, but you can bring it to our body shop and repair it for less. They will benefit because they get some repairs done, and they will benefit from getting the car clean versus they now repair it when you return it. And you also benefit because you save on those annoying charges.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And that's okay. That's sale of used cars. Any other use cases we haven't, we should dive into?
No, I think I'd like to go back to maybe a question that some of our listeners will have. We clearly haven't invented this space, right? People have been trying to adopt technologies for triaging and what is called straight-through processing, STP, in the industry. And I kind of, the saving is very clear. I mentioned 30% is the magic number you can look to save per claim. Why hasn't it happened? You are talking to insurance companies, especially in Germany, and there is very few cases, maybe between 1% and 5% at most, that get automatically resolved. What is the reason for that? And I think a lot of people say that the technology is not yet good enough.
Sure.
I think, we see three reasons for for STP by technology not widely adopted. The first one is simply lack of data or lack of images. A lot of insurance companies will simply not ask their customer to send them images. And the first time they see the car is at the body shop. There, I will dare to say it's already lost. If the car gets to the body shop and the body shop is sending the information, then I think a lot of the dynamic we see today will still happen. So you've got to have a good and intuitive technology and an incentive by a customer to provide you with images. Either you promise them more rapid repair and more rapid resolution, or some sort of discount, some incentive. The second problem, even when you get the images, they're not great quality. So you're uploading images, and then maybe or maybe not, they are good enough to figure out what's going on and have an estimate. So a solution needs to have really cool, really intuitive process that still results in good enough data. And then finally, the industry that has been building automated repair estimate today, I believe, did not have the right baseline of data. They have been using the repair quotes from today's insurance claims, which means they already have the problems of the inflated repairs in them. I think that's where we decided to take a slightly different approach on all these problems. I think, we are deploying two different sets of technologies to this problem. The first one is what we call Raven Inspect. It's a web application, and instead of uploading images, it is basically scanning the car.
Yeah.
So it creates a quality assurance on the consistency of the images. We look at every point on the vehicle from multiple angles. We also correct the user if they are not showing the right parts of the vehicle. So the chances of making mistakes or even doing fraud go down significantly.
So you need an app, and it actually uses the camera rather than uploading a picture. And then I think we know this sometimes from QR codes, right? That's kind of when people wonder what the difference might be. Okay, yeah.
Exactly. And then you avoid a lot of the issues that we see today with fraud, and maybe I'm uploading one image of one car and another image of another car. When you scan a car, all of this goes away, and we even have some fraud indicators by the way you walk around the car to say, okay, this guy is honest. It's okay. So that is the solution that we see to the quality issue.
Can you speak to what the indicators are, or would we give too much away for the small population of listeners who want to conduct insurance fraud?
Let's just say that if you think you can scan two vehicles that look the same in one scan, it will be impossible. We will find out. And indeed, every suspicious behavior, like stopping the scan for several minutes and then resuming it, will be flagged as a risk.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we will accuse you immediately of committing fraud, but it will be flagged as a risk.
Understood.
And then, on the other side, once you got the quality images and you got the green light that you are an honest person, how did we build our repair estimate? And the way we built our repair estimate is not necessarily by looking at the existing practices of insurance companies. It is coming from our experience in the fleet industry. It is coming from repairs carried out by people who own the vehicles, like you. And when you want to repair your vehicle, you will find the most cost-effective way, because you will go to your guy and you will repair the vehicle effectively. We think that because of that, we are able to challenge the practices of, let's go for the most expensive repair possible, and we will adopt more of the methods that fleets use when they repair their own vehicles.
Cool. Makes sense. That's interesting. Yeah, because of course, Hertz is going to run their body shop repair process very differently than even in insurers' historic claims, where all of the inflated costs are already in and you just don't know what the right baseline is. Understood. And you've mentioned that's the two, Raven Inspect, and then it's basically the repair cost database, right? Those were the two. Okay.
Right. That is the Raven Deep Detect, which is a massive brain that includes the repair estimate, but also includes things like multi-angle analysis of damage and extrapolation and consolidating several damages on the same panel to understand the depth, and many different things that honestly I don't know much about, and that's why I have smarter people in the company.
And maybe that's a good point to kind of segue. Could you outline at which point you'll use AI or machine learning, or is it for you a big difference? Do you have a different definition of AI and machine learning for your own company? I'm not a big fan about definitions, but currently AI seems to be more sexy than machine learning. I think 3-4 years ago, people were talking a lot about machine learning. Now it's obviously all AI.
Yeah, these are both, I would say, quite beaten terms in the industry. And to me, artificial intelligence probably just means that it is doing some tasks beyond what you initially programmed them for.
Mm-hmm.
So in our cases, we see multiple types of applications for artificial intelligence. We use it both at the very front end of the inspection. We just mentioned fraud prevention. So training networks on understanding patterns of fraud, training training the system to understand what is dirt and what is damage, what is just a reflection and what is damage, just like your human eye is trained to do without even thinking. And that is on the front end. And then, of course, on the back end, understanding different types of damages, how they impact the vehicle. What does it mean on the incident itself? Were you hit from the side or from the front? What severity was the hit? What is the likelihood of the incident impacting some internal parts beyond what we see in the images? These are all questions that our AI team is actually addressing.
Cool. If you were friends of an insurance CEO, right? What kind of advice would you give that person?
First of all, I'd start by telling them, look, I'm sure you know this already, but you are paying anything between 200 to maybe 600 million euros in claims, in motor claims every year. Very clear. That number needs to go down. I think we all agree on that. The question is, how can you quickly, without like a massive 5-year project, introduce efficiency into your process such that you can automate, so reduce the logistics and the overhead related to motor claims, and control the costs of the body shops.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd show them a 90-day plan of doing that. And after the 90-day, we would already show some reduction.
Cool. Is there anything else you would, from what you've learned, that you as a person, rather than if you weren't working for Ravin anymore, was there any additional advice rather than you should check out my former colleagues at Ravin, get a fix on your claims ratio?
I would say, look, there's a lot of buzz around technology, and it's also very easy to get lost. I mean, before Ravin, I I had another company, and then before that company, I was actually working for Shell, for the energy group, and we were doing a lot of experiments with technology, anything from oil drilling to selling coffee in the retail shop, and all the way to the future of mobility. And I think the most important advice that I gave, that was given to me, and I will give also others, is make sure you understand the business case. Don't just test technology because it's cool, because everybody's talking about it. Make sure you are business case focused. And that is the first advice. How does it save money or make you money? It seems obvious, but very difficult to do. And the second thing I would say is that perfect is the enemy of good. Find a pragmatic
especially
way.
in Germany, that's something, there is a, yeah.
Yeah. Übung macht den Meister, yeah?
Übung macht den Meister, absolutely. But it's, oder ist noch nie ein Meister vom Himmel gefallen. But yeah, we have a few of those. This was really, really interesting. Is there anything else we haven't touched that you would kind of leave us with before we wrap up?
I enjoyed it very much. I think it's an exciting time for the industry, and I'm glad I could speak on your platform and hopefully get to some interested people that want to explore this space. But eventually it's not just about Ravin, or it's not even about just images and claims and things like that. I think the whole industry is just forced to go through a major transition, and I'm just happy to be part of that journey.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Anyone listening, if you want to reduce your motor claims, maybe hit up Raven and see how these guys can help you. Thank you so much. It was a true pleasure.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.